Chapter 81, A Mere Clown, 33. I had planned to eat in the cafeteria, but with the way things were, I'd probably be mobbed. I grabbed 3 takeout portions from the cafeteria window and even picked up something Ghastly could eat. I used Slowpoke's psychic power to carry the boxes and intended to head straight back to my room. Just as I was about to leave, a thin, pale young man, flanked by 2 bodyguards in black, stepped directly into my path. He looked to be in his 20s, sleep-deprived and indulgent, dressed in designer clothes with neatly combed hair, handsome in a spoiled kind of way. When Slowpoke saw him, the blue light in its eyes flickered. Having grown up on Trial Island, it picked up the man's thinly veiled malice and instinctively stepped in front of me. The young man's eyes brightened as if he'd found an interesting toy. "Hey, I want to talk to you," he said arrogantly. My face went cold. I glanced at him and his 2 guards, said nothing, and walked past them with Slowpoke. Because I hadn't ordered an attack, Slowpoke didn't strike. The 2 guards clicked their shoes to block my way again. My patience snapped. "Get lost," I said. He'd clearly been used to getting his way and didn't take that tone well. He opened his mouth to command his guards, but then remembered where we were. Anger flushed his pale face, but he had no real option. I ignored them and kept walking. Slowpoke used its psychic power to shove the 2 guards aside so I could pass. After all, they were just human, and no match for that ability. Even if they were tough, it was pointless. As we headed for the stairs, the young man's voice trembled a little. "If you have the guts, don't leave the Pokémon Center." He was a locally well-known heir who liked collecting rare Pokémon to show off his status. Someone had tipped him off, and he'd rushed over with his people to try to buy Slowpoke. He hadn't expected to be snubbed before he'd even spoken. Because this was a Pokémon Center, he couldn't use force. He could only wait outside. We went up to the 4th floor. I swiped my keycard, locked the door, and released Murkrow and Ghastly from their Pokeballs. "Caw!" Murkrow cried. "Ha!" Ghastly responded. They'd been cooped up a while and were glad to be freed. On Trial Island, they'd lived outdoors. A Pokeball felt cramped. "Ghastly, stay in my shadow from now on," I said. "Murkrow, you'll have to bear staying in your ball for a little while longer." Slowpoke still looked guilty, convinced it had caused trouble for me. I squatted and patted its back. "It's nothing, just a mere clown. Don't worry about it." I unpacked the food Slowpoke had carried and set it out. They sniffed the unfamiliar scents, but waited for me to give permission, an old habit from Trial Island, a sign of respect between companions. "All right, dig in. You've never had these before." I sat cross-legged and ate with them. For Slowpoke, I had canned all fish made from various species, its favorite fishy smell. Murkrow got assorted chicken and fish. Despite being a bird, it loved meat. Ghastly's food was a special granular feed produced by the Alliance for Ghost Types. Each pellet carried a concentrated death aura that Ghastly loved. They ate slowly and happily, savoring every bite. This time, there were no hidden threats in the wild, so they didn't have to hurry, and I could relax watching them. The Pokémon Center food wasn't objectively the best cuisine, but for creatures raised on raw fare on Trial Island, these seasoned dishes were a revelation. I wasn't worried about that brat recognizing me. If I took off my human mask and shoved Slowpoke back into its ball, he wouldn't know who I was. If he did track me down, I could make him regret it. I still remembered enough from my past life to kill him and get away. And at worst, there was Slowpoke's teleport. But I had no intention of showing off that power. Letting people know Slowpoke could teleport would only make it more desirable. So I refused to let a petty incident spoil our mood. Watching my Pokémon enjoy their meal made me unexpectedly happy. My old life had taught me to see Pokémon as tools, but Murkrow had shown me otherwise at the last moment. Starting over, I'd come to treasure this bond above everything. Pokémon were living beings with thoughts and feelings, and when treated well, they would risk everything for you. They'd become the one soft spot in my heart. This week, we're on a strong recommendation. Jinmu humbly asks for bookmarks and recommendations. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 82, The Pokémon Alliance. Please collect, please recommend. Early the next morning, to avoid trouble, Aoki took off his human mask, stored Slowpoke safely, and left the Pokémon Center. 2 black-suited bodyguards stood at the entrance, proof the young man from yesterday had been waiting for him, but Aoki ignored them and headed straight for Vermilion City's bus station. He passed the two without drawing attention. It was still early and few people were about. Aoki slipped into a narrow alley and once inside put the human mask back on, this one signaling his league identity. One human mask isn't enough. Next time I should get a few more, he thought. Different faces could be useful for avoiding trouble. When he stepped back out, his appearance had changed. Aoki had 2 realistic routes to reach Johto quickly. One was to take a cruise directly from Vermilion City to Olivine City, and then travel from Olivine to Mahogany Town. The other was to go to Saffron City first, then ride the magnet train from Saffron through Mount Silver to Goldenrod City in Johto, and finally find a way from Goldenrod to Mahogany. The cruise would have been convenient, but the Pokémon Center staff told him the most recent ship to Olivine had left yesterday and the next wouldn't sail for 4 days. That was too long, so he abandoned the cruise and chose the faster magnet train route, Vermilion to Saffron by bus, magnet train to Goldenrod, then onward to Mahogany. There was only 1 bus from Vermilion to Saffron each day, departing at 9 in the morning. If he missed it, he'd have to wait another day. Wearing a plain League trainer uniform, an ordinary human mask, and with Slowpoke hidden away, Aoki bought a ticket and sat in the waiting room, reading the latest League newspaper to pass the time. A headline caught his eye. League E Intermediate Investigator wipes out Team Rocket Base, promoted to Senior Investigator. That alone would have been notable, but the name made Aoki sit up. Lance. Lance, the future Dragon-type Elite Four member of Kanto, who would later become Johto champion after the old Indigo League split, was being promoted. Lance, the destined head of the Dragon Clan. To understand why that mattered, a brief note about the League was necessary. The Pokémon League, known simply as the League, had grown into the dominant power across several continents. It shaped the laws and order of the Pokémon world. Its origins were long lost to history, but its emergence brought an era where humans and Pokémon could coexist peacefully. Before the League, the world had been chaotic. Only after ambitious leaders united various forces did the League arise to impose relative order. Even so, the League's influence wasn't uniform everywhere. Its strongest control centered on the Kanto region, the area that would later be administered as the combined Kanto-Johto sphere, with headquarters built on Mount Silver at the regional border. Remote places, like the newly discovered Alola region, remained mostly unknown to ordinary people and outside the League's everyday grasp. Where the League lacked direct control, it often made compromises with local powers. Still, the presence of Elite Four members and champions in every region represented the League's ultimate authority. Among all regions, Kanto produced the most concentrated talent. Competition for Elite Four and champion slots was fierce. Only the absolute best could claim those thrones. That crowded talent pool is one reason the Indigo League eventually split into Kanto and Johto. Too many contenders for too few positions. By dividing the region, the League increased opportunities without changing the rule that each region has 1 champion and 4 Elite Four. Lance's rise was shaped by that split. He was a powerful Dragon-type trainer whose reputation soared, but he didn't become Kanto champion. Lorelei, an Ice-type member of Kanto's Elite Four, was a formidable counter to Dragon-types and decisively outmatched Lance during the critical challenge. Lorelei fought without mercy, and Lance couldn't overcome her. Because his mother was from Blackthorn City in Johto and his father from Kanto, it wasn't a strange fit for Lance to take the Johto champion title instead. Later, the Kanto champion spot briefly went to Gary Oak, Professor Oak's gifted grandson, though his reign lasted only a year, stories for another time. Now, Lance had been promoted to Senior Investigator, soon to be Chief Investigator, and would be stepping into ever more prominent roles within the League. Seeing his name in the paper made Aoki reconsider the shifting balance of power he was navigating. Please collect. Please recommend. Thanks to Lonely Rain for the 2,000 reward, the Favored One for the 600 reward, Cold Person for the 100 reward, You're a Bit Watery for the 100 reward, and Riding a Turtle with a Snail on My Back for the 100 reward. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 83. Saffron Seeking Collection and Recommendations, 23. In his previous life, Aoki had once seen the fiery lance during a direct confrontation between Team Rocket and the Alliance. At that time, Lance was still the dragon-type member of the Kanto Elite Four, and his strength had been awe-inspiring. In recent decades, the Alliance's prestige and control over the regions had waned, so they began heavily promoting their own descendants through the press. Lance Wataru was one of the faces they pushed hardest. It was part of a long-term plan to shape his future role. Alliance officials had anticipated their declining influence and relaxed restrictions on who could become a trainer. As their grip loosened, they needed more obedient trainers to rely on, people they could cultivate and, through them, control the region. When the Alliance was founded, it had been a union of powerful factions, and Pokémon training had been an elite profession reserved for the upper classes. Commoners had neither the right nor the resources to become trainers. But as peace settled and large forces grew stronger, the Alliance opened the trainer profession to the public. They set up gyms and Pokémon centers, invested resources in the early stages to help commoners grow, and after several generations, more of the Alliance's own descendants emerged naturally. This curbed rogue ambitions and stabilized society. Still, it was much harder for commoners to advance as trainers compared to the Alliance's descendants. Those who registered with the Alliance were non-direct descendants. They acquired their first Pokémon through various means, passed Alliance assessments, and became officially recognized trainers. The ID card Shadow had given Aoki was a non-direct descendant card. Direct descendants were different. At a certain age, they received a high-quality starter Pokémon and a Pokédex from the Alliance, plus perks like free treatment at Pokémon centers and complimentary accommodation. Direct or non-direct status was usually determined at birth, but non-direct descendants could, in rare cases, become direct descendants through exceptional contributions and by passing specially designed assessments. Achieve that, and your descendants would inherit direct descendant status. Such reversals were extremely difficult. Only true prodigies or those who made great contributions in any field could pull it off. An outstanding Pokémon professor, or a breeder who passed mid-level assessments, for example, might be elevated by the Alliance. Because so few could change their fate legitimately, many people saw Team Rocket as an alternative. If you were willing to be ruthless and to risk everything, the odds of a violent, sudden rise seemed higher. Attention, all passengers. The shuttle to Saffron City is about to depart. Passengers who have not yet boarded, please proceed to Gate A3. Aoki, absorbed in a newspaper, was pulled back to the present by the announcement. Time had slipped by without his noticing. He folded the paper, swiped his ID at the gate, and boarded the shuttle to Saffron City. There were few passengers, so he picked a window seat and watched the cityscape recede as the shuttle pulled away. "Pokémon World, I'm back," he said quietly to himself, supporting his head with one hand. Travel was easy in the Pokémon world, perhaps because of the Pokémon themselves, so conventional transport infrastructure wasn't as developed. After nearly 3 hours, he arrived at the most prosperous city in Kanto, Saffron City. Situated between Cerulean, Celadon, Vermilion, and Lavender, Saffron is Kanto's biggest and busiest metropolis and one of the most famous cities across regions. Silphco's massive headquarters dominates the city center, and 2 gyms occupy its northeast corner. It's the region's commercial heart and transportation hub, home to a magnet train station connecting Kanto and Johto, and an airport with routes to other regions. Because of its central importance, the Alliance puts a lot of emphasis on Saffron, but where resources concentrate, power does too. Besides the Alliance, one of the strongest forces in the city is Team Rocket. After all, Sabrina, the so-called Psychic Queen and one of Giovanni's trusted executives, is based here. The city's development draws trainers from every region. Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, and beyond are all represented. Wild Pokémon from many regions are common sights. With so many trainers, Saffron has become Kanto's greatest battleground. Within designated zones, you can find intense, sanctioned fights between trainers. Residents expect to see exciting matches and are used to Pokémon from other regions. Where there is light, there is also shadow. Saffron's underground arenas and battlefields are highly developed. Some people fight below ground for Alliance currency, Others, wealthier and crueler, pay to watch violent, bloody matches to soothe their own appetites. The city could be called the City of Battles, and because of the relentless pursuit of profit and power, Aoki preferred to call it the City of Desire. Even with increased Alliance law enforcement, the scale of gray and black markets made policing inadequate. Pokemon hunters, mercenaries, and assassins risked everything for the wealth on offer. It was a place of ambition, hunger, and danger. Update schedule. Generally at 8 a.m., around 12 to 2 p.m., and 8 p.m. Please collect and recommend. Chapter 84, Saffron City Black Market, Seeking Collections Recommendations. When Aoki stepped out of the car, the clock read exactly noon. The 3-hour ride had left him a little stiff. Dressed in ordinary trainer clothes, he blended into the bustling city as soon as he stepped onto the sidewalk. He released Slowpoke from its Pokeball. Though a shiny Pokemon might draw a few looks, Saffron City was the busiest, wealthiest city in Kanto. A shiny Slowpoke merely turned a few heads rather than causing a scene. Saffron City was only a stop on Aoki's journey, but as the largest commercial center in the region, it offered every kind of supply. He planned to buy a proper set of Pokeblock crafting tools. Until now, he'd made do with crude, homemade implements that could produce only mid-grade Pokeblocks. With a professional kit, he could craft high-grade Pokeblocks, one grade up but worlds apart in effect. Mid-grade blocks might speed growth and recovery a little. High-grade ones could more than double those effects, and with regular use, could even slightly improve a Pokemon's aptitude. That was why high-grade Pokeblocks were so expensive. Registered high-grade breeders in the Alliance were rare and highly protected. There were fewer than 100 on record, and they enjoyed special privileges and demand from trainers everywhere. To have a breeder formulate blocks specifically for your Pokemon, trainers were even willing to make one-time deals, rare, valuable arrangements. Money poured in for those who could make high-grade blocks, but only if they had the power or influence to protect those earnings. So Aoki needed to find a large, discreet vendor to buy a professional toolset. Saffron City had countless malls and Pokemon shops, but where there's light, there's shadow. The city's black market was well developed. Aoki knew its contours because Team Rocket was the largest force behind it. In truth, it wasn't very hidden. Team Rocket controlled the saffron black market, and its annual take from those operations made up nearly a fifth of the organization's income. The real authority there was Sabrina, stationed at the Saffron City Psychic Gym on Team Rocket's behalf. Her strength and volatile temper kept everyone in line. The Saffron Black Market offered everything short of true legendary Pokemon, rare items, high aptitude, and regionally uncommon Pokemon, even pseudo-legendary specimens, if you had the money. Of course, having cash wasn't enough. You needed the strength or protection to take what you'd bought out alive. If you had money but no muscle, you risked being stripped clean. Aoki was banking on the black market having the Pokeblock tools he needed. He also needed to convert some illicit items into Alliance coins. He'd arrived with only 1,000 Alliance coins after spending 500 on the train, and couldn't afford retail prices. But first, he needed to eat. After the drive, his stomach growled, and his Pokemon would be hungry too. He checked into a modest but reputable hotel for a few hours using his Alliance ID, then ordered food for himself and his team, spending until he had only 200 coins left. The service was good, and the food arrived quickly. While they ate, Aoki asked Ghastly to sweep the room for surveillance devices. Satisfied there was no listening equipment, they finished their meal. The Pokemon, pleased with the new dishes, returned to their Pokeballs without fuss. Ghastly drifted back into Aoki's shadow. He called for a taxi. Under the practiced hand of a local driver, they reached the black market entrance in about half an hour, and his last 200 coins were gone on the fare. Fortunately, he'd arrived at his destination. He could worry about money later. Not everyone could enter the black market freely, so Aoki found a secluded spot and changed into a Team Rocket uniform he'd prepared. Over the uniform, he pulled on a black robe with a wide hood that obscured his face. He stepped into a shop that looked ordinary from the street, a small Pokemon supply store with a handful of customers and shelves packed with everyday goods. Nothing on display seemed extraordinary, an attendant came over with a practiced, professional smile. "May I help you, customer? Our store offers excellent quality at reasonable prices. I'm sure you'll be satisfied." Chapter 85, Appraisal, Exchanging for Money, Requesting Collection, Recommendation. Though Aomori wore a loose black robe, the receptionist showed no surprise. Goldenrod City drew all kinds of people. His attire was nothing unusual. Aomori said nothing. He took a Team Rocket ID from his pocket, the same one issued on Trial Island. By the time he left the island, Shadow had already upgraded his status from trialist to a full-fledged Team Rocket grunt. The receptionist's expression shifted when he saw the Team Rocket emblem. He led Aomori into a dim room, took the ID without a word, and swiped it through a computer. Only after checking the screen did he relax and return the card. Then he pressed a button beneath the counter, and a hidden door in the floor opened. "Go in." "No trouble, no fighting inside," the man said flatly, and left. Aomori had been here countless times in his previous life. He knew the routine. He descended the steps without hesitation. The secret door closed behind him as faint lights lit the stairwell. He followed the descending corridor for nearly 5 minutes until it opened into a much larger space. What had been a narrow stairwell became a spacious hall with a dozen identical corridors branching off, each one a passage to a different part of the underground market. There were more than 10 such central halls in the black market, and each had 10 passages. Through them, most parts of Goldenrod City could descend directly into the underground city. Aomori's entrance happened to be guarded by Team Rocket. He stepped through the hall's main exit into a wide thoroughfare packed with people. Hard-faced, expressionless, the city's rogues and traders. Many, like him, wore black robes, so he drew little attention. This was the largest underground trading center in Kanto, the Goldenrod City Black Market. Streets branched into smaller lanes, stalls, and shops. Some Team Rocket members walked unmasked through the open roads, and others gave them wide berth. Team Rocket held real power here, but that didn't mean every member was safe. If someone's value didn't match their swagger, desperate predators would ignore any badge. Aomori released Murkrow from its Pokeball and let it settle on his shoulder. Murkrow had gained weight since Trial Island, but Aomori's body had strengthened as well. The bird's weight was no burden. It was a deliberate show. In the black market, you needed some visible strength to avoid being targeted. With Murkrow perched there, the unfriendly stares gradually slid away. The sharp aura and faint scent of blood that clung to Murkrow, residue from Trial Island, sent a clear message even to the hard-bitten denizens. Although this was his first time here in this life, Aomori knew exactly where to go. The black market's layout never changed. Different districts specialized in different goods. He headed straight to the Pokemon item vending area. The market consisted mainly of shops, with some streets reserved for trainers selling their own finds, often chaotic but sometimes yielding genuine treasures among the fakes. What you could buy depended on how keen your eye was. Aomori ignored the street hawkers. His goal was to get League coins first, then buy tools for crafting energy blocks, items usually sold only by larger shops. He walked into the biggest shop in the Pokemon item district. Run by Team Rocket, it enjoyed the best location and resources. Unlike the plain facade at the surface entrance, this shop overflowed with goods and people, sellers and buyers jostling along the counters. Aomori took a seat at a newly vacated counter marked Appraisal. The shop had over a dozen appraisal stations. Behind each sat an expressionless Team Rocket appraiser who mechanically examined whatever was placed before them and announced a purchase price. Whether the seller agreed to sell or not, an appraisal cost a fixed fee of 500 League coins. Many people came only to learn the value of strange items. Team Rocket's buying prices were infamously low, but their process was formal and reliable. They didn't pilfer valuables outright. That reputation made them the trusted appraisers of the black market. After getting an appraisal, most sellers rented a stall on the street to try for a better price, unless they needed money immediately. Aomori set a small glass bottle on the counter. Inside was a milky white liquid that shimmered faintly in the light, Earth Core Milk. This was the best item he currently had to convert into League coins. Before leaving, he had decanted a portion into a smaller bottle, only a fraction of his total supply, but the most convenient amount to trade. He waited quietly as the appraiser reached for the bottle. Chapter 86. Rocket Team Squadron Leader, Seeking Collection and Recommendation. Aoki had chosen the amount carefully. Earth's core milk was pricelessly rare. Selling too much at once could stir up trouble, but selling too little wouldn't raise enough league coins for what he planned to buy. This quantity struck the right balance. The appraiser, a man whose face usually never betrayed emotion, changed expression when Aoki produced the small bottle of milky white liquid. He ignored Aoki and focused on the vial. Although he had a suspicion about what it was, there weren't many people who actually tried to sell Earth's core milk, so he couldn't be certain. He uncorked the bottle with careful hands. A faint mist drifted out, carrying a subtle fragrance. The appraiser's eyes widened. He took a silver needle from his kit, dipped it into the liquid, brought it to his nose to sniff, then to his mouth to taste. His pupils lit up. He resettled the stopper and pushed the bottle back toward Aoki. "Excuse me, are you looking to sell this, or just have it appraised?" His voice, hoarse from lack of use, sounded rusty. Appraising was tedious and monotonous work. Most customers only wanted a valuation. Whether to sell was up to them. But when something valuable appeared, the appraisers could turn into merchants in a heartbeat. Their base salary was small. The real money came from commission on items acquired after appraisal. A high-value piece meant a high bonus. Aoki had altered his voice slightly. A dry, hoarse reply came from beneath his black cloak. The appraiser brightened and then, testing the waters, said, "This is Earth's core milk. I assume you know its uses. Our current acquisition price is 10,000 league coins per drop. That bottle should hold about 200 drops. We can buy it now at market price, 2 million league coins." 10,000 per drop was the official acquisition figure, but it was a ripoff. Anyone who knew the market wouldn't sell at that rate. The appraiser wanted to see whether Aoki knew the real value. The apparently full 5-centimeter glass vial would hold thousands of drops if it were just water, but Earth's core milk was far denser and richer. This size held roughly 200 drops, a count Aoki had verified before bottling. "If you're not going to be sincere, I can sell it myself. Plenty of people would pay more," Aoki said calmly. He genuinely thought the appraiser was trying to fleece him. Given time, he could probably get 20,000 league coins per drop on the open market. He'd come here primarily to save time and avoid complications. The appraiser realized Aoki wasn't an easy mark. An awkward flicker crossed his face. Then, professional composure returned. He'd been doing this for more than a decade. This was just business. "Ahem. Then how about 15,000 per drop?" "That's my limit," he offered, keeping his tone steady. He was thick-skinned by trade. Negotiations always started low and climbed. 18,000, Aoki replied flatly. His counter made the appraiser pleased rather than offended. A price was a negotiation. Naming one suggested the seller expected a deal, and now the appraiser could move forward. Still, 18,000 exceeded his authority. "Please wait a moment, sir. I'll have to consult my supervisor." He scurried off, leaving Aoki to sit and rest, Darkrai perched obediently on his shoulder. In the black market, it paid to be discreet. The appraiser returned with a portly, smiling middle-aged man, greasy-faced but affable. His eyes flicked over Aoki before settling on the Rocket Team badge on Aoki's chest. This badge glowed with a golden border and two faint R indentations on the rim, a Rocket Team Squadron Leader's insignia. "Sir, this is the manager of our shop, Rocket Team Squadron Leader Lord Ishida," the appraiser announced with respect. Aoki's eyebrows twitched. A squadron leader. This was the first he'd met since Trial Island. If Ishida ran one of the black market's top shops, his influence had to be significant. Ishida's smile was oily, not imposing, but the rank on his chest spoke for him. "So this is the gentleman who wants to sell Earth's core milk?" Ishida chuckled. "Please, come with me to the VIP room. We'll discuss it there." He motioned toward a private partitioned room. The appraiser fell in behind Aoki. What they called a VIP room was little more than a sealed-off space with a coffee table and a leather sofa, neater at least than the open stall. A maid arrived quickly to set down tea. They sat. The negotiation was about to take actual shape. Outside the curtain partition, the black market buzzed on. Inside, dark mist and the faint scent from the bottle lingered in the air. Strong recommendation in progress. Please collect and recommend. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 87, Energy Cube Making Tools. Please collect and recommend. After they sat, Ishida said bluntly, "Sir, we'll accept the price you named." He was straightforward. Aomu's offer was a little high, but the profit was still significant, and they weren't pressed for time. He immediately told the appraiser to start the paperwork. Aomu's brows tightened. The man was unexpectedly quick to agree. Ishida chuckled. "Don't worry, nothing else. Just asking out of curiosity. Sir, do you happen to have any extra Earth's core milk? We'd buy more at a higher price." Aomu didn't relax. If anything, he grew more guarded. "Do you think Earth's core milk grows on trees?" "That's all I have," he said with the barest hint of sarcasm. Ishida's smile didn't fade. The manager of this black market shop needed to be thick-skinned. He'd seen stranger attitudes before. "Haha, fine. Just curious. If you ever want to sell anything else, you can find us." He produced a silver-white card with the Team Rocket logo and slid it across. "This is our VIP card. You get a 5% discount on purchases." Aomu raised an eyebrow. He liked tangible perks. Talk was cheap. He took the card and slipped it into his robe. 5% on a big purchase could save a lot. On a million-credit deal, it was meaningful. A swift, efficient appraiser hurried over and handed Ishida a black card. "Sir, this unregistered Alliance Bank card contains 3.6 million. It's the payment for the Earth's core milk," he reported. Aomu let out a slight breath of relief. The sale would fund himself and his Pokémon for a while. He reached into his robe again. "Also, I want a complete set of energy cube making tools. Medium configuration is fine. Charge it to that card." Ishida blinked at the unexpected purchase, then recovered quickly. Good. Prepare a medium config set for this gentleman. Make sure it's a good one." He instructed the appraiser, realizing for the first time that the dark-robed stranger might be a breeder. The honchcrow perched on the man's shoulder confirmed it. This wasn't just a collector. The appraiser, taken aback, hurried off. "Are those tools for yourself, sir, or a gift?" Ishida asked with an easy laugh as they waited. "What if it's for me? What if it's a gift?" Aomu's voice was hoarse from under the robe. "Oh, nothing to imply," Ishida said, smiling. "If you ever want to sell energy cubes through our shop, we can handle it with preferential fees." Aomu only hummed in response. He said little. Whether that was by nature or by design, Ishida couldn't tell. He kept quiet and waited. They didn't wait long. The appraiser returned with a bodyguard carrying a large tray. On it lay compact, finely made instruments, the medium configuration set Ishida had promised. The manager gestured for the tray to be set down and for the bodyguard to step away. "This is the best set in our medium range. Retail 1.2 million Alliance credits. With your VIP discount, it's 1.14 million. Your card has 2.46 million remaining. Please keep it safe." Ishida pushed the tray and the black card forward. Aomu recognized the tools at once from his previous life, making energy cubes. The craftsmanship was genuine, one of the better medium sets available. He stowed everything into his storage belt with a concealed hand, stood, and without another word, left the VIP room. As Aomu's cloaked figure receded, the smile on Ishida's face faded and his brow tightened. "Should we send someone to follow him?" the appraiser asked cautiously. They ran a legitimate front, but this was the black market, and Team Rocket under Sabrina didn't shy from risky dealings, so long as the risk and profit balanced. Ishida hesitated. "No, I can't read his background. If we tail him carelessly, we might expose ourselves and lose a valuable client, an intermediate breeder." The appraiser saluted. "Keep an eye out if Earth's core milk turns up again. If it does," he let his voice go cold. "Whoever it is, catch them." "Understood." 200 drops of Earth's core milk weren't worth provoking an intermediate breeder. More than that, and they'd consider action. As the manager handpicked by Sabrina, Ishida knew where to draw the line. Outside, many had seen Aomu being led into the VIP room, so a few tails had tried to follow him. In the black market's maze-like alleys, he easily shook them off. Please collect, please recommend. Chapter 88. What is Scorpio? Please collect and recommend. After shaking off his tail, Aoki slipped into a dilapidated little shop that looked completely out of place among the surrounding stalls. Inside, broken shelves held a few moldy food items draped in spider webs. A sour, rotten smell hit him as he walked deeper in, and he frowned but didn't leave. This was a place he'd visited many times in his previous life, a vendor of human skin masks. Though rundown, the shop had a reputation on the black market. If it weren't for its shabby appearance, the owner's craftsmanship would have made it prosperous. The man was an eccentric, a master craftsman who didn't care for profit. Like the old story of Zhang Ziya's patient fishing, those who want to be caught will be caught. He did no advertising, so his fame spread only by word of mouth among a handful of regulars. It was those few customers who kept the shop barely afloat. A web brushed Aoki's face. He flicked it away. Murkrow, perched on his shoulder, used Tailwind to avoid the other webs and sighed in relief. At the back of the shop, an old man with glasses and disheveled clothes sat behind the counter, engrossed in finishing a mask. He didn't even look up when Aoki entered. The man treated every customer the same, as if the mask in his hands were the world's most precious thing. Strangely, once a mask was finished, he would toss it on the floor like trash and start the next one. He rarely left the counter workbench except to eat or attend to basic needs. "Boss, I want to buy 5 masks," Aoki said, covering his mouth and frowning at the smell. The man didn't bother to look up. His hands kept working. "Masks are on the floor. Pick the styles you want. Card readers on the counter. 20,000 Alliance coins each. Swipe if you want them. If not, get out. I don't have time for you." Aoki already knew the owner's manner, so he didn't argue. He picked a few ordinary-looking masks from the floor, swiped a full 100,000 Alliance coins without blinking, and left quickly as if escaping. Why insist on buying here? Not just for the craftsmanship, though that was excellent, but because no 2 masks made in this shop were ever the same. Each one had a unique appearance. That condition couldn't be met anywhere else. Outside, Murkrow puffed and shook off the stifling air still clinging to it. Aoki tapped its head and laughed. "Stop panting. We have to get used to environments like that. You might face opponents that smell even worse." Murkrow cawed incredulously. Aoki grinned. "You'll see. Some Pokemon, Gloom, Grimer, Muck, are much worse." He led Murkrow down a quieter path and ducked into an alley to change his mask before heading back into the black market. He pulled a fresh mask from his Team Rocket belt. Despite the owner's sloppiness, the masks were immaculate, thin as cicada wings, crystal clear, and cool against the skin, just like the quality traded inside Team Rocket. With a few adjustments, the mask molded to his face, edges pressed until it blended seamlessly. No sign of a disguise showed. Just then, hurried footsteps echoed in the narrow alley. Aoki dropped into a crevice and put his hand on a Pokeball at his waist, ready to send out Slowpoke if things turned hostile. If the opponent proved too strong, he could use Ghastly and have Murkrow use Protect, then escape with Teleport. He'd thought he'd shaken off anyone following him. As the footsteps drew closer, he tensed. 2 men stopped not far away. Aoki was about to act when their voices revealed they were hiding, not hunting him. "Why are we hiding here? Why didn't we just leave the market?" a sharp voice asked. A rougher voice snapped, accompanied by the sound of a hand smacking a head. "Are you stupid? If we go out now, we'll get seen. Lay low until the rush dies down, then leave. Maybe we can sell this today." "Heh, you're right, but is it really worth it? We went through all that trouble to steal it. I've never even seen what this Pokemon egg looks like," the sharp voice said. "You're an idiot," the other man growled. "If it wasn't valuable, would I have stolen it? I heard them say, 'This is a Pokemon egg with top potential.' Of course you wouldn't recognize it. It's from the Sinnoh region." Aoki's heart skipped. Sinnoh? Brought here to be sold? Stolen? He pressed himself flatter into the crevice and listened harder. "How much do you think it's worth, brother?" the sharp voice whispered, excitement creeping in. "At least several 100,000, the rough voice muttered. "From what I heard, they said something about Scorpion. Sounds like it's a Pokemon with excellent potential. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come all the way from Sinnoh to Goldenrod to sell an egg." "We're rich," the excited voice hissed. "Keep your voice down. Are you trying to get us killed?" the other snapped. Aoki's mind raced. A stolen Sinnoh egg, possibly a rare species. If that really was what they'd heard, it could fetch a fortune. And the thieves were tucked away in the same alley. He eased back, ready to decide whether to intervene, alert authorities, or let them go and follow. Either way, this was trouble he hadn't expected to run into tonight. Thanks to Hongyin Ye for your support. As a Pokemon expert, your novels always inspire me. Please recommend and collect. Thanks to Tai, Where Are You Running? Eat My Stick for the 10,000 coin reward. This is the first 10,000 coin reward for this book. I owe an extra chapter. Thanks to Ching Kui for the 1,000 coin reward. Thanks to Carrying a Snail, Riding a Turtle for the 100 coin reward. And thanks to everyone for your continued support. Chapter 89, Double Kill. Please collect and recommend. 23. What kind of scorpion? Sinnoh region? The only Pokemon with scorpion in their name from Sinnoh are Skorupi and Gligar, right? Aoki thought as he listened to their conversation. Gligar wasn't exclusive to Sinnoh, it also appears in Johto, so the most likely candidate was Skorupi. The mention of a Skorupi egg made something stir inside him. Aoki knew Skorupi well. In his previous life he'd had one, but let it go because its aptitude had been poor. That didn't change the fact that Skorupi was an excellent Pokemon. The poison bug Skorupi evolves into Drapion, which becomes Poison Dark. That combination is brilliant. Dark covers Poison's weaknesses, and Poison covers Dark's. With those types combined, Drapion is only weak 2 comes to ground. Everything else deals at most neutral damage. It resists Poison, Ghost, Grass, and Dark moves, and is immune to Psychic. Practically anything it faces, it can face head-on. Add in its strong base stats, great speed, defense, and attack, and you've got a near-perfect tank and attacker that isn't easily kited. Beyond typing and stats, Drapion's abilities are excellent. Battle Armor makes it a dependable, hard-to-ignore tank. Sniper turns it into a high-damage, one-shot physical threat. The hidden ability Keen Eye can make it a consistent damage dealer. Depending on ability, Drapion can fill tank, bruiser, or sustained damage slots on a team. If you compare it to a very popular game on Earth, it's the ultimate all-rounder. From what the two men were saying, it was clear the Skorupi egg had been taken from someone else, though how they'd gotten it was unknown. Judging by the context, the egg's aptitude had to be excellent. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered bringing it all the way from Sinnoh to sell on Saffron City's black market. There were 2 likely scenarios. Either the original owner didn't realize the egg had been stolen and the thieves were waiting to sell it, or the egg had been acquired illegally and the true owner knew, but was too afraid to speak up. Aoki leaned toward the latter. If the egg had been obtained legitimately, it would have fetched a higher price in Sinnoh. Many in Kanto didn't recognize Sinnoh Pokemon or their value. If the thieves had taken the risk of transporting it to Kanto, the egg's aptitude was almost certainly exceptional. Maybe the rightful owner was influential back in Sinnoh. The secondary owner feared stepping into their shadow. Aoki felt temptation, not just because of the Drapion potential, but because here was a Pokemon egg with unexpectedly excellent aptitude sitting right in front of him. The two men's conversation had devolved from Pokemon business into crude talk about women, a sure sign their guard was down. Aoki peeked slightly. They weren't looking into the alley, but had their backs to him, watching the street. It made sense. They'd chosen a dead-end alley for privacy and safety. They didn't expect anyone to be hiding in the narrow gap further in. To be cautious, they hadn't released any Pokemon. Maybe they didn't have any. Just black market thugs. Aoki rested a hand on Slowpoke's Pokeball at his waist and gave Murkrow a glance to prepare. Ghastly, which had been hovering in the shadows, slid out at the right moment. The black market had rules against visible violence, but countless people still died there every year. As long as you weren't caught, nothing happened. Chaos and criminals dominated. Team Rocket's concern for safety was only surface deep. What actually happened came down to individual strength and timing. The two men, laughing and lewd, were talking about how they'd spend the money they expected to get. That was the moment Aoki struck. Ghastly, sneak up and use hypnosis. Slowpoke, psychic, control their mouths and hands. Don't let them pull out their Pokeballs or make any noise. Murkrow, wing attack, take them out. Aoki threw Slowpoke's ball and barked the commands. Slowpoke materialized and immediately unleashed a focused psychic, clamping down on their mouths and hands. The burly man with the rough voice tried to shout, but his mouth wouldn't work. He reached instinctively for a Pokeball on his belt, only to be startled by Ghastly's sudden appearance. The ghostly Pokemon used hypnosis, and both men slumped into sleep. In the darkness, Murkrow flashed like lightning. Its wings glowed and sheared through the air, slamming the two men into the alley wall with dull thuds. Human bodies couldn't withstand a full Pokémon strike. The pain rendered them unconscious. As they hit the ground, the incubator holding the egg tumbled from their hands. Slowpoke, watching intently, caught it with psychic power. Aoki glanced at the two motionless men and felt nothing but emptiness. He drew the dagger from Team Rocket's utility belt, the same blade he'd used on Trial Island, and, like a mantis stalking a cicada, unaware of the aura behind it, struck. The men would never have expected that the person they'd feared would come alone from behind. He wiped the blood-stained dagger on their clothes and ensured they would not wake to cause trouble. Both men had 2 Pokeballs on their belts, but Aoki had acted before they could release anything. That was why Ghastly had been concealed in the shadows, ready to counter any sudden moves. Ghastly could even use Protect if needed. Against Pokemon, the human body was always fragile. Please collect and recommend. Chapter 90. Droppy and Aoki took their Pokeballs and locked them to prevent the Pokemon inside from escaping. His chip scanned them. The burly man's Pokemon were an Arbok, Orange Aptitude, level 25, and a Fearow, Orange Aptitude, level 24. The sharp-voiced young man had Eradicate, Orange Aptitude, level 22, and a Zubat with Yellow Aptitude, level 18. The Yellow Aptitude Zubat surprised him. Even at level 18, its value surpassed the combined worth of the other 3. Their Pokemon were solid. Not on the level of Murkrow and Slowpoke, but facing 4 at once would still be troublesome. Winning wouldn't be impossible, but the fight would likely cause a big commotion, and in the black market, that would make escape difficult. Still, Aoki miniaturized the 4 Pokeballs and tucked them into his pocket. Their aptitudes and levels were average, but they were still worth money. Back in his previous life as a Pokemon hunter, these would have been prey. He then collected their cash and valuables. He hadn't expected those 2 seemingly poor men to hand over 100,000 Alliance coins. Thieving really could be lucrative. Next, he turned to the suspended Pokemon egg. He stepped forward, took the incubator in his hands, and the chip displayed its data. Pokemon, Skorupi, Light Cyan. Gender, male, level 1. Type, poison, bug. Ability, unknown held item, none. Egg moves, Screech, Agility, Poison Tail, Pursuit. Base moves, Bite, Poison Sting, Leer. It was a Skorupi, and its aptitude exceeded his expectations. Light Cyan aptitude was a big step up from Green, and it already had 4 egg moves. Aoki, who had always been interested in Skorupi, was very pleased. If trained properly and evolved into Drapion, this would be a true trump card. He didn't know the ability yet, but Skorupi's 3 possible abilities were all useful in different builds, so he decided then and there to keep and train it. Being an unhatched egg also meant it would bond very closely with its trainer. The first face it saw would be like a parent. He hadn't expected simply searching for a place to change his mask to yield such a talented Pokemon. This was the 3rd egg he'd collected. He'd sold a Beedrill egg to Shadow, found a pseudo-legendary Larvitar egg that couldn't hatch, and now this Skorupi egg with Light Cyan aptitude. Each egg had been high quality. The Larvitar was the most valuable but couldn't hatch. This Skorupi would be the first Pokemon he raised from hatching in this life. He checked the incubator again. All indices were normal. The hatch time read 3 days. That meant he had to prepare suitable food for a newly hatched Pokemon. Energy cubes could be tailored later with the chip for training, but newborns couldn't eat energy cubes right away. They needed supplemental nourishment. The best choice was Miltank milk. The higher the Miltank's level and aptitude, the richer its milk. Store-bought milk with long shelf life had additives that reduced its nutritional value, so if possible, it was better to buy a Miltank itself for long-term feeding. He'd planned to buy a Miltank after finding a way to hatch the Larvitar egg to feed that pseudo-legendary from the start. Now, he had to move the plan up. With Skorupi hatching in 3 days and its excellent aptitude, raising it on real Miltank milk would give it a powerful body and a great head start. Decided, he had his Ghastly conceal the incubator within his shadow. Aoki's shadow was almost becoming a storage room. Besides the Skorupi egg, his shadow already held the Larvitar egg. He returned Slowpoke to its Pokeball and left Murkrow on his shoulder. Murkrow wasn't uncommon in the black market. As a dark flying type, it wouldn't draw suspicion. He donned the human skin mask he'd just bought, pulled the black robe from his spatial belt, and slipped out of the secluded alley. Aoki now had 6 finely made human skin masks. Used well, they could provide 6 different identities. The mask Shadow had given him was his Alliance identity, the most important and least expendable of the lot. The one he'd just put on would serve his other profession, Pokemon Hunter. In his previous life, hunting Pokemon had earned him his first fortune and the resources to train his team. This time, he had a higher starting point, and the Hunter trade would help him gather more resources as he trained his Pokemon. With that plan set, he walked toward the black market's Pokemon stalls to find a Miltank. Chapter 91, Hunter, 13. Aoki knew the main commodities of the black market well. After leaving the alley, he headed straight for the area where Pokemon were sold. In his previous life as a Pokemon hunter, he had come here often and had a certain reputation. Unlike the item stalls, the Pokemon section was noisy and crowded, a jumble of people in every kind of clothing. Iron cages lined the entrances to every shop, and inside them were Pokemon that were rare enough to draw a crowd. You could see rare specimens from all regions. Though the Pokemon in the cages looked listless and lethargic, onlookers still pointed and debated their strengths and weaknesses. Even Kanto starter Pokemon were commonly displayed at storefronts, equally dull but always attracting attention. The shops themselves were large and sold a wide variety of Pokemon. At some entrances, scantily clad women tried to pull customers inside. If you didn't know better, you might think these were establishments of another sort. It was all just a sales tactic. People called to Aoki as he passed, trying to lure him into their stores, but he ignored them all. It wasn't that the selection here wasn't diverse. Some places held extraordinarily rare, even legendary Pokemon. The problem was those Pokemon had been specially trained and had lost much of their wildness, making them practically useless to someone like Aoki. He was looking specifically for a Miltank. Even if he intended to use it mainly for support or milk production, he wasn't willing to buy one on a whim. If he found a good one, he planned to train it properly. If he couldn't find a suitable Miltank, he might consider one from these shops as a tool. He walked straight to a shop deeper in the street. Several iron cages stood at its entrance, but their bars were noticeably thicker and sturdier. The Pokemon inside watched the crowd with feral, hostile expressions. Anyone who tried to get too close would be intimidated. This was the only shop in Saffron City's black market Aoki knew that sold untamed Pokemon. It was favored by trainers who pursued raw, ultimate strength. For those who treated Pokemon as ornaments or pets, it was not the place to shop. There were no greeters or revealing hostesses at the door, just a black iron door. Aoki pushed it open without hesitation. The metal grated as it swung, and he stepped inside. There were no flashy lights or fancy decorations, only a few candles giving off a weak glow. Cages piled up on both sides of the aisle, each one holding untamed Pokemon. Ignoring their various cries, Aoki strode toward the back. 2 minutes later, he reached the counter. Behind it sat a woman in black leather, applying lipstick while holding a small mirror. Surrounded by the beast's cries, she worked calmly and deliberately. When she noticed someone enter, she put the lipstick away, used a slender pinky to wipe the corner of her mouth, then folded the mirror. She looked up at Aoki, smiled seductively, and from her cherry-red mouth came a lazy, silky voice. "Oh, looks like a new customer." She raised a willow leaf eyebrow, and a small dimple showed on her rosy cheek, luminous in the candlelight. She leaned on the counter, supporting her head with a long, elegant hand. "Did you stumble in, or were you recommended?" Before Aoki could answer, her delicate nose wrinkled and she sniffed. "The smell of blood, huh? Then you didn't just wander in. Do you know the rules of this shop?" "I do." His voice was a little hoarse, neutral enough to conceal age or gender. Others might not know who ran this place, but Aoki did. This shop belonged to the Hunter Guild, the largest organization of Pokemon hunters in the Kanto region. The Pokemon here had been captured by guild members and deliberately left untamed. The guild believed wildness made a Pokemon more valuable. The woman at the counter might look delicate, but she shouldn't be underestimated. She was the shop manager and a registered hunter in the guild. Her strength matched that of a powerful trainer at Elite 4 level. Aoki knew the rules she'd mentioned. Once purchased, a Pokémon could not be returned, and nothing about what you'd seen in the shop was to be revealed after you left. Anyone caught breaking those rules would be barred from every Hunter Guild shop across regions, and in severe cases, guild hunters would come after them. Many of the Pokémon here had been acquired by guild members through questionable means, plucked from Alliance-designated protection areas, bought on the black market, or seized from other dark organizations. If those illicit origins were exposed to the Alliance or rival groups before sale, the Pokémon's value would drop. The Pokémon in these cages were only a small sample. Truly rare specimens were never displayed here, but auctioned through the guild's regular auctions. Invitations to those auctions went to select customers and to influential figures in the underworld. The Hunter Guild's power in Kanto was considerable. Aside from the Alliance and Team Rocket, few groups could reliably outmatch them. The guild's auctions were major events among underground circles. Team Rocket, the largest dark organization in Kanto, had a particularly close relationship with the Hunter Guild. For instance, the trial Pokémon provided to challengers like Aoki each season were supplied free by the guild, hence the trialists often had to work with untamed Pokémon. Exactly how deep the ties went remained unclear. Please collect. Please recommend. Thanks to Luobodo for the 100 reward, Norton IX for the 100 reward, Feng Fengnian for the 100 reward, Dead Sea Qing Tian for the 500 reward, and Furo Nianhua for the 100 reward. Thank you all for your support. When Aomuki said he knew the rules, the woman in the leather jacket fell silent. She reached under the counter, produced a bottle of nail polish, twisted off the cap, and calmly began painting her nails. After blowing on them to dry, she looked at the motionless Aomuki with visible boredom. She pouted. How dull. So what Pokemon do you want? No need to ask about pseudo-legendaries. We don't have those here. And even if we did, you couldn't afford one. Her assumption that he couldn't afford a pseudo-legendary wasn't unfounded. A licensed Pokemon hunter needed basic judgment. How else could they know whether a Pokemon was worth capturing? From the Murkrow perched on Aomuki's shoulder, she could gauge his level roughly. The Murkrow had good aptitude and looked well-trained, but its level wasn't high. That told her Aomuki wasn't very powerful. Even if he hid some strength, it wouldn't be enough to buy a pseudo-legendary. Of course, Aomuki wasn't here to buy one. Pseudo-legendaries take so long to train that by the time they're ready, the Pokemon he nurtured might well be able to challenge them. I want to buy a Miltank, Aomuki said plainly. Oh, wild Miltank aren't common. Most are monopolized by that family in Goldenrod City. Besides, is there really much difference between a wild Miltank and one raised by people? The woman asked, peering at him in surprise. Isn't there? Aomuki asked back. She rolled her eyes in an amused, slightly flirtatious way. Humph. Ungentlemanly. Follow me. She pulled a jingling ring of keys from a drawer beneath the counter and led the way toward the back of the shop. Aomuki stole a quick look at her curvy silhouette and felt a little awkward. He wouldn't dare think anything untoward. She was a well-known thorn rose and nearly an Elite 4-level expert. He kept his gaze fixed on his shoelaces and obediently followed. Though she walked ahead, the woman kept glancing back to watch him. After one quick look, she relaxed. He wasn't staring. She smiled alluringly over her shoulder as she reached a gray iron hatch. She fumbled through the keys, found the right one, put it in the lock, turned it twice, and the heavy plate gave with a creak. Here, these are the Miltank you're after. Take your pick. Each cage has a label and a price. Tell me when you've decided. With that, she began to hum and walk away, the keyring swaying from her slender fingers. Aomuki waited until she rounded the corner and disappeared before letting out a small sigh. Facing such a famous expert made him nervous with his current lack of strength. He turned his attention to the cages, 5 iron enclosures, each holding a Miltank. He activated the chip's scanning function and pulled up the data for all 5. The information populated almost instantly. Looking over the 5 profiles, Aomuki thought carefully. All 5 were decent and within a level range he could work with. From appearance, one Miltank was obviously older. The other four looked healthy, eyeing him with a mixture of hostility and fear. Miltank are generally gentle, so none of them were frenziedly attacking their cages, but having been taken by hunters and held for some time, they carried mistrust and wariness toward humans. He ruled out the older Miltank first, then the highest level one. That level 30 Miltank was also the most openly hostile. The hatred in its eyes made Aoki lose interest. It was obvious it had suffered trauma when captured. Pokemon like that are extremely difficult to tame, and their entrenched fighting styles are hard to change. Even though it was strong, it wasn't right for his purposes. That left 3 Miltank around level 20. One of those had the Scrappy ability, which negates ghost immunities for normal and fighting-type moves. Though valuable in battle, Aoki didn't need another offensive powerhouse. His team already had strong attackers, Murkrow and the soon-to-hatch Skorupi, so he wanted a Miltank to serve as a support Pokemon, one with good survivability to help his team recover and stay in fights. 2 of the remaining Miltank shared the Thick Fat ability, which halves damage from fire and ice-type moves, an ability that greatly enhances a Pokemon's survivability. He narrowed it down to those 2. The 2 Miltank's profiles read as follows. Pokemon, Miltank, light green, gender, female, level 21, type normal ability, thick fat, held item none, egg moves, curse, helping hand. Basic moves, tackle, growl, defense curl, stomp, milk drink, endure, roll out tutor moves, shockwave, thunder punch to none. Pokemon Miltank, light green, gender, female, level 20, type normal, ability, thick fat item, none. Egg moves present, endure. Basic moves, tackle, growl, dance curl, stomp, milk drink, endure, rollout. Tutor moves, helping hand, heal, bell, block, none. Their specialties were clear. The first leaned toward combat with electric tutor moves. The second was focused on support through its egg and tutor moves. Considering how he planned to use Miltank, the choice was obvious. The second Miltank, a level 20 female with thick fat, present and endure as egg moves, and helping hand, heal bell, and block as tutor moves, would be the best fit for Aomuki's team. He was satisfied with the pick. Please collect. Please recommend. Chapter 93, Hunter Guild, Seeking Collections, Seeking Recommendations. This one will do, Aoki decided. He'd only meant to get a Miltank with a yellow aptitude to provide nutrient-rich milk for his team and to prepare for the upcoming birth of his Skorupi. Ignoring the varied expressions of the 5 Miltank in the stall, he focused on the cage label of the one he'd chosen. Number 85679, species Miltank, aptitude high, training value medium, price 500,000 alliance credits. 500,000, he murmured. Apart from the highest leveled Miltank priced at 600,000, this was the most expensive one here. Still, given its aptitude and skills, it was reasonably priced, steep, but acceptable. He remembered the green aptitude Weedle on Trial Island that Shadow had bought from him for 20,000 points. Obviously, a Miltank wasn't comparable to an ordinary Beedrill, and alliance credits didn't convert neatly to points. He'd made his choice. Aomuki pressed the red button at the entrance, crossed his arms, and waited. Not long after, the woman in the black leather outfit glided in, hips swaying. You chose quickly. Which one do you want? She asked with a practiced smile. This one. Aomuki pointed casually at the Miltank and handed the black bank card he'd just received to her. The woman in leather looked momentarily surprised, took the anonymous card and said, "Nice taste." She produced a card reader from a spatial item, entered the amount with practiced fingers, and swiped the card. After a soft beep, 500,000 alliance credits were deducted. She then drew a plain Pokeball, threw it, and the red capture light flashed as it secured the Miltank. Handing the ball and the card back to Aomuki, her voice curved into a sing-song tune. "These are yours. Do come again. My name is Rose. Remember that." She deliberately prolonged the O. Aomuki's mouth twitched. If this were any ordinary customer, Rose's looks and voice might sway them, but he knew who she truly was. The name suited her, like a rose, beautiful with thorns. Getting close to her wouldn't just leave you pricked. A quasi-elite 4-level expert like her could teach lust-filled men exactly why roses are red. Her outward charm was a disguise. Aomuki didn't reply. He took the Pokeball and card. After a moment, he said, "I'd like to register as a member of the Hunter Guild and take on some tasks." Rose paused mid-application of lipstick. Her smile faded as she appraised him, as if seeing him for the first time. "A hunter?" she asked coldly. The Hunter Guild was underground, but not tightly cohesive. Apart from a core few who were trained within the guild, most people simply registered and completed tasks issued by it without binding duties. Members were scattered across the regions. Each area had contact points. This shop, besides selling wild Pokémon, doubled as a hunter contact point and task board. In his previous life, Aoki had first encountered the hunter profession at a shop just like this in Saffron City, though Rose hadn't been the owner then. Registering as a guild hunter wasn't strictly necessary to sell captured Pokémon to the guild, but it did allow acceptance of targeted tasks. It had been how Aoki earned his first pot of gold in his past life, and he wasn't about to give it up now. With enough strength and an eye for aptitude, hunting wild Pokémon was a fast way to make money. He wasn't short on funds at the moment, but Pokémon progression demanded ever more resources. He was preparing for that. Rose's gaze glinted, and she returned to her lipstick. "I thought you were a novice," she muttered. "How boring that you're actually a hunter." She led him deeper into the shop. They walked in silence for nearly 5 minutes. At the end of the corridor, she pushed open a large iron door and a spacious hall opened up. Unlike the dim buying area, the hall was lavishly lit and busy. People of all kinds moved about, each wearing a badge on their chest. Some badges bore 3 stars, some 1 star. One person even wore a sun emblem. The fearful looks directed at the sun-marked person made it clear they were among the most powerful in the room. Around the hall, several teleportation points shimmered. Almost every minute someone would appear at one, and others would rush onto a point and vanish. These were the teleports for registered Hunter Guild members. Fixed locations made using Pokémon with teleport. Many of the teleport points and some special locations only became known after someone registered and completed a number of tasks. New registrants learned just 3 of the many teleport points in this hall. The basic ones, each within 3,000 meters of the hall. The badge on each person's chest represented their Hunter Guild rank. 1 star was a 1-star hunter, 2 stars a 2-star hunter, and so on up to 7 stars, the highest rank. Different star levels could accept different tiers of tasks. The person with the sun emblem was internal Hunter Guild staff. They enjoyed privileges different from the starred hunters, could take on tasks of any star level, and ranked just below the branch chairman as honorary elders. Please collect. Please recommend. However, unlike ordinary hunters, who only need to complete missions and sell Pokémon, the honorary elders who wear sun badges enjoy privileges but must shoulder obligations. The Hunter Guild can summon them to fight for the guild. Because of this, these men and women are often formal members of the guild and have been privately nicknamed by regular hunters as sun dogs, a sly way of calling them the guild's lackeys. Their strength, though, is formidable. The minimum requirement to hold a sun badge is roughly equivalent to a quasi-elite 4 level. When Qiangwei led Aoki into the main hall, it drew a little attention, but people soon went back to their business. The sun badge wearer, who had been lounging on the sofa, acting cool, straightened up at the sight of Qiangwei, his face brightening into a sunny smile as he hurried over. "Qiangwei, what are you doing here?" Qiangwei's pleasant air from the shop was gone. She scowled, her voice icier than before. "What does my being here have to do with you? Yangdo, why are you everywhere?" Yangdo, the man with the sun badge, didn't seem offended by her barb. He just smiled. "I heard you were transferred here to manage the shop, so I applied to be transferred here too." This wasn't the first time he had followed her. Qiangwei felt helpless. Yangdo's background was complicated, yet he kept pursuing her relentlessly. She had even fled to Goldenrod City's black market to manage a small shop to avoid him, but he had tracked her down anyway. Wanting to avoid getting tangled in conversation, she ignored his eagerness and walked straight to the guild counter. Aoki followed silently behind her. Noticing Qiangwei's dismissal, Yangdo didn't look put out. After courting her for so long, he thought he knew her well. He pressed on, trying to find a topic. Qiangwei winked to the clerk at the counter and said without turning, "Process his registration." Then she stepped aside for Aoki. Only then did Yangdo spot Aoki and his expression darkened slightly. Who's this? He asked, frowning. Changwei took out a mirror, reapplied a touch of faded lipstick, and replied, a newcomer. I brought him to register. Given Changwei's position, she didn't actually have to escort new registrants herself. She was simply the only staff member on duty at the moment. She'd felt a certain coincidence with Aoki, nothing more. Aoki kept his distance from their exchange, clearly not the type to join in idle chatter. He approached the clerk at the counter and said, I'd like to register as a hunter. Yang Do interpreted Aoki's presence as just another of Changwei's daily duties and reacted possessively. Without targeting Aoki directly, he launched into a half-joking lecture about safety. For newcomers, you should pay attention to safety. The wilderness can be dangerous. He was showing off, trying to stake a claim over Kang by warning off anyone who might be near her. Yang Do didn't think Aoki was any real rival. Aoki made no reply, unshaken by the implied provocation. When you're not in a position to compete, restraint is often the wisest course. Yang Do, that's enough. We have work to do. Changwei snapped, catching the attention of people nearby. If Yang Do humiliated a newbie like that in public, gossip would follow, and it would reflect poorly on the guild. At her sharp rebuke, Yang Do barked at the onlookers to mind their own business. The spectators quickly averted their eyes at his sudden roar. He didn't press the matter further. After staring at Aoki for a moment, he returned to his seat and began tapping his fingers on the table as if mulling something over. After a short silence, the counter clerk leaned forward and asked softly, Are you here to register as a Pokemon hunter? The clerk knew both Changwei and Yang Do. He had kept quiet while Yang Do was present. No one liked to interfere with a big shot's flirting, but dared speak once Yang Do moved away. Aoki nodded. The clerk's posture straightened at the nod. He didn't fancy provoking someone who could ignore Yang Do. He set aside his casual attitude and fell into business. Registering with the Hunter Guild may not matter much when your star rating is low, but as your rank rises, the perks increase. Higher star missions require the corresponding rating and pay well, and star ratings can even earn discounts when purchasing Pokemon. What's your registration code name? The clerk asked as he followed the procedure. Hunters usually didn't use real names. Pokemon hunting wasn't a respectable profession in many eyes and often conflicted with alliance identities, so a code name simplified matters. Aoki considered briefly. Joker. It had been his hunter name in his previous life, and after being reborn, he chose to keep it. The clerk didn't react much. Every day brought a flood of odd names. He typed it in, clicked a few times, and a jade green card slid from the machine. This is your hunter card, he explained, handing it to Aoki. It records the missions you take and your success rate, and it stores guild points. You'll need it every time you accept a mission. Aoki took the card. It still retained a faint warmth. He was now a registered junior Pokemon hunter with the Hunter Guild, star rating 0. All right, I'm done here, Changwei said without looking up as she painted her nails, then turned and left. She showed no inclination to linger. This was just a job, and Aoki just another customer. Aoki nodded silently and said nothing. Please collect. Please recommend. Lately, the author's mindset has been off and previous drafts have nearly run out. Starting today, I need to work hard again to write and stock up drafts. As for the rewards, I almost forgot. Thanks to Ling Ren for the 100 reward, Shupei for the 200 reward, Norton IX for the 100 reward, Ou Chensui Saowudong Oo for the 100 reward, and Kanjawonyo Tiwugui for the 100 reward. Thank you all for your support. My sincere gratitude. Chapter 95. Next Saturday, I'll share some ideas and set up a group. Thank you all for your support. Group number 484893327. First, thank you to all the readers and book friends for your support. It's because of you that this book has come this far. I'm Jinmu, a new author. I started this book on a whim. You might not believe it, but when I finished the first chapter, it was simply because I'd run out of novels to read. I wrote that one chapter and then didn't start the second for a long time. At the beginning, I had no backlog of chapters because I never expected to get a contract when I first posted it. Writing was just a way for a reader who'd run out of books to pass the time. I'm getting a bit off topic. Next week is the 6th round of recommendations. To be honest, I never expected the book to go this far. It's all thanks to everyone's support. I bow in gratitude. Many more established authors were also strongly recommended around the same time, so I was a little intimidated by my own results. Fortunately, the editor still gave me a spot for the 6th recommendation. This recommendation round is important because it affects whether there will be further slots later, so I hope everyone can click to vote and add the book to your collections. It might be a common problem for new authors to pay too much attention to the numbers. Sometimes my mindset becomes unstable while writing. If there are parts that aren't well written, please be patient with me. I read every comment carefully in front of my computer. For some comments, I don't know how to reply, so I haven't replied to them. New authors are easily affected by reader feedback. Sometimes I'd sit at the computer for an hour or two after reading comments and couldn't write a single word. New authors are prone to mental breakdowns, but I will definitely finish this book as a way of accounting for my more than 10 years of reading. Finally, I'll answer some questions readers often ask. First, the top 3 families on Trial Island. The trial on Trial Island isn't over yet. The protagonist just went off to do side quests and will return. Because the special nature of this trial has been emphasized earlier, I set the outline for the later plot at the start of writing. I hope it will satisfy everyone. Second, whether the protagonist will eat spirits. To be honest, I hadn't considered this before writing because it felt distant to me. But readers reminded me that in the spirit world there is indeed a food chain, so the book will not directly depict the protagonist eating spirits. However, items from powerful spirits that have died, like dragon scales, dragon teeth, or Houndoom's horns, may be used. If there are wild animals, scenes of spirit consumption likely won't appear. Third, the rainbow-colored aptitude tiers that many of you have complained about. I originally used rainbow colors simply because it was easy and I wouldn't have to think hard. As a reader myself, every author has different tier systems, and I'd forget them and have to flip back. Using basic rainbow colors seemed simplest. I often complain about it too, haha, so please be gentle with the criticism. Fourth, updates. Generally, I update 3 times a day. Once at 8 a.m., once between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m., and once at 8 p.m. Honestly, 3 updates a day for a new book feels fast because the new book period passes quickly, but since I promised 6,000 words a day, I will stick to it. Before the book goes on sale, it will remain 3 stable daily updates. After it goes on sale, depending on circumstances, there might be 4 updates a day or other changes. It all depends on fate, haha. Fifth, writing style and description. I'm a science student by training, so my writing can be a bit rigid. My style developed subconsciously from reading novels, and it may be mediocre. Please be understanding. Also, there are some recurring poison points I often mention when reading. To keep the book enjoyable, please try to avoid repeatedly pointing them out in chapter reviews. It can be discouraging. Sixth, please leave me some replies. Don't make me feel like I'm playing a single-player game alone. Okay, that's all my rambling. Next week is the 6th recommendation, so I'm begging for collections and recommendations. Thank you all. You're welcome to join the group anytime to criticize me or to discuss the book or games. Anything is fine. And thank you to everyone who has tipped me. Your support means a lot. Chapter 96. I remember you. Please collect and recommend. Tuther. Aoki walked up to a row of computers in the Hunter Guild Hall. This was where the guild posted missions. Any hunter could swipe their ID card to accept available jobs. Someone had just left the terminal. Aoki approached, and without looking back, abandoned their card in the card reader. Aoki sat, took the card, and swiped it. The screen changed. Hunter, Joker, Hunter points, 0 star rating, 0 mission completion rate, none. Note, you're just a rookie. What are you waiting for? Go hunt Pokemon. Aoki couldn't help an inward smile at the last line. The Hunter Guild liked its little jabs. He clicked the mission tab and a list of tens of thousands of 0-star tasks filled the screen. The guild restricted missions by star rating. As a newly registered hunter, he was still 0-star, so only 0-star missions were available. 0-star jobs were usually simple, with modest rewards. To accept higher star missions, a hunter had to raise their star rating, which the guild calculated from hunter points. Hunter points were awarded based on the worth of submitted Pokemon. Catch a creature worth 100,000 Alliance coins, and you received 100,000 hunter points. Star thresholds were steep: 1 star at 100,000 points, 2 stars at 1,000,000, 3 stars at 5,000,000, and 4 stars at 10,000,000. The higher the star, the harder it was to reach, but the better the missions and rewards. Points in the Hunter Guild functioned like Alliance coins. When you submitted a mission, you received both the cash and an equal amount of points, which could be exchanged for Pokemon or items within the guild. That system was part of why Aoki had registered. Those points would be useful for buying the resources his team would need. The guild itself made plenty of money from the sheer quantity of Pokemon turned in every year. Apart from the Pokemon Alliance and Team Rocket, it was one of the most profitable organizations around. Aoki scanned the zero-star list carefully. He hadn't forgotten Shadow's mission, so he focused on jobs that might let him encounter Pokemon along the route. He finally accepted a slightly tougher zero-star task. Zero-star mission: capture a Nidoran with at least moderate aptitude. Higher aptitude equals higher reward. Nidoran. If memory served, there were large Nidoran families in the wilds outside Goldenrod City. If he searched, he could probably find one with decent aptitude, an easy way to earn extra money while working on Shadow's objective. Even with over 1 million Alliance coins in hand, training Pokemon consumed resources quickly. He accepted the mission and it disappeared from the list. A new line appeared under his profile. Mission: capture Nidoran. In progress. He logged off, pocketed the ID card, and walked toward the teleportation arrays in the hall. As he was about to leave, he felt someone watching. Yang Do had been sitting on the sofa with his eyes closed. When Aoki stood, Yang Do opened his eyes and took note of which teleportation array Aoki chose. Aoki headed straight for one of the 3 arrays available to zero-star hunters and smiled faintly as he swiped the card. A soft light signaled activation, and a white flash swallowed him. Yang Do rose as well. He had not originally intended to target Aoki specifically, but lately there had been too many flies buzzing around Rose. As a protector, Yang Do thought it was time to make an example, and Aoki was the unlucky chicken that had wandered into his sights. The old hands in the guild knew Yang Do's temper and glanced at Aoki with pity. Aoki had shown no sign of his identity or strength. With a haunch crow perched on his shoulder and the black robe obscuring him, he looked like an easy mark. And hunters had their own tracking methods. Appearance wasn't necessary to find someone. With a satisfied smile, Yang Do swiped his golden ID card, the one that marked his status, and stepped into the same array. Aoki arrived through the teleportation exit into a hollowed tree. The guild's arrays were scattered through different forests. The farther they could transport, the higher the level of the array. As a zero-star hunter, Aoki had been sent to a small forest outside Saffron City. The guild shuffled array destinations periodically to prevent tracking by Alliance agents, but for short intervals, everyone who teleported out used the same landing sites, which was why Yang Do had waited until Aoki left and then followed. Aoki stepped out and released Slowpoke from its ball. Another white flash announced Yang Do's arrival, and he emerged from the hollow, tall and calm. "Hey," Yang Do called, smiling. "I told you, out here in the wild, it's dangerous." Aoki barely blinked. He smiled and gave a single command to Slowpoke. "Slowpoke, teleport!" Slowpoke concentrated, psychic power rippling, and a faint distortion of light gathered around Aoki. Yang Do tossed a Pokeball into the air and shouted, "Houndoom, flamethrower!" Aoki's voice was hoarse and cold as it came. "Yang Do." The words carried a hard edge. Yang Do's smile didn't falter. To him, Aoki was still just a small fry. If this bird didn't fall, there would always be another. Aoki folded the moment into himself and repeated silently, "I remember you." Yang Do really was close to Elite 4 level, and Houndoom was a terrifyingly strong partner. Before Slowpoke could complete its teleport, a gout of fire erupted from Houndoom's mouth, aimed straight at Aoki and Slowpoke. Murkrow, Ghastly, use Protect. It was exactly what Aoki had expected. Murkrow and Ghastly, already prepared, instantly materialized in front of him. The pale green shield of Protect took the brunt of the flamethrower. Houndoom's power was obvious. The protect that normally held for 2 seconds shattered in half a second under that assault. That was all the time they needed. Slowpoke's teleport activated, and Aoki and his Pokémon vanished from the forest. With nothing left in its path, Houndoom's flamethrower slammed into the trees behind them with a thunderous roar, igniting a massive blaze that gutted large sections of the woods. Damn it! Yangdu swore, furious that his target had slipped away. The duck he'd been hunting, his prize, was gone, and his anger flared. The forest's wild Pokémon paid the price, fleeing or falling to Houndoom's fury. After venting, Yangdo grudgingly withdrew with Houndoom. Sirens wailed in the distance. Officers from Saffron City arrived on the scene. Officer Jenny herself, representing the Pokémon League, led the response. Meanwhile, in a spacious room of the Saffron City gym, a woman with long, dark green hair sat cross-legged in midair, surrounded by shelves of dolls that gave the space an oddly girlish feel. She wore a flowing red robe. Abruptly, she opened her eyes. A faint green light flickered within them. That feeling. Anyone who knew the gym would have recognized her at once. Sabrina, the Saffron City gym leader and a notorious Team Rocket executive. She had sensed the psychic fluctuation from Slowpoke's teleport and tracked the warp back to its origin. Aoki and his Pokémon reappeared in the black market, in a secluded corner, exactly the spot Slowpoke had been told to record and return to in case of emergency. It had been a precaution, a lucky one. Well done, Slowpoke. You're getting better with teleport. Aoki smiled and patted Slowpoke's back. Yadong. Slowpoke squinted and made a contented sound. The teleport distance hadn't been huge, so it hadn't used much energy. Against an opponent like Yangdo, Aoki knew he had no hope of winning. Slowpoke's teleport had saved them both. It was a debt he intended to pay back once he grew stronger. Suddenly, Slowpoke, still half closed-eyed, snapped to attention. Its relaxed limbs went rigid. A tremor ran through it. Aoki felt the change immediately. Slowpoke had never behaved this way before. Its whole posture screamed primal fear. "What's wrong, Slowpoke?" Aoki asked, voice low. Slowpoke couldn't answer. It trembled more violently. Murkrow, too, seemed to sense something. It struggled to take flight, but found its wings oddly heavy. Ghastly, meanwhile, was paling, its purple haze thinning as if being drawn away. "Is this the Slowpoke? Interesting." A clear voice sounded from nowhere and everywhere at once. Impossible to locate. "Who's there?" Aoki stood and scanned the shadows, but no one was visible. Then, gradually, a figure formed in the air. A young-looking woman floating above the ground, smiling down at Slowpoke as if at a curious toy. Aoki's pupils tightened. The name that rose in his mind was a chill, Sabrina. Her psychic presence explained everything, the sudden terror that had gripped Slowpoke, the way Murkrow had lost its lift, the fading of Ghastly's form. Sabrina's psychic power was explosive, rivaling an elite 4-level psychic Pokémon. She drifted closer, ignoring Aoki completely, and peered at Slowpoke. "Little one," she said, amusement in her voice. "Do you want a new master?" It was playful, but to Aoki it sounded jarring and cold. "Ya! Dong!" Slowpoke's body remained rigid. Sabrina's psychic force filled it with a fear that seemed to reach into its very bones, yet the stubborn brightness in its eyes and the clipped cry it managed showed a will not to submit. Sabrina's smile faded when she heard Slowpoke's reply. The green light in her eyes and the glow around her hands tightened. Her blood-red robe billowed with no wind. Sabrina, who had always been used to getting her way, felt something for the first time. Genuine resistance. "Yadong!" Slowpoke cried again, its voice stronger now. It was adapting to Sabrina's aura, and for the moment, pushing back. That defiance snapped Sabrina's attention toward Aoki. "You are its trainer?" she asked coldly. Her gaze felt like a blade on Aoki's skin. After a brief pause, he answered, "Lady Sabrina, Slowpoke is my partner." Sabrina was famous in Saffron City, but she tended to stay in the gym and train, so not many outside the inner circles recognized her up close. Aoki let his black robe fall open, revealing the Team Rocket uniform beneath. From his belt, he produced a small badge shaped like a black cloud, an insignia of the Shadow Reserve. At the sight of his uniform, Sabrina's expression barely shifted. But when she saw the Shadow Reserve badge, a flicker of surprise crossed her face. "What is your relationship with Shadow?" she asked, the earlier frost in her voice easing just a touch. "Please collect and recommend." Everyone, please be gentle with your feedback. Chapter 98, Awakening. Please collect, please recommend. 13. Your subordinate is currently on a mission for Lord Shadow, Aoki said cautiously. Even in his past life, his ability to withstand someone as powerful as Natsume had been limited. Now it was even less. When facing a superior, proper respect was necessary, not weakness, but deference to power. Natsume fell silent at his words. The faint green light in her hands and eyes dimmed, her playful mood cooling. That Shadow, his strength was badly hurt after his last failure. To send someone as weak as you on a job now, he's slipping, she muttered. She hovered down and let out a disdainful tsh as she glanced at Aoki. Then, in a surprisingly girlish tone, she said, "How boring. I finally found a fun toy." Natsume's power was unquestionable, but her capricious, childlike personality was well known among Team Rocket's upper ranks. She bounced over to Aoki, tilted her head, and inspected him from head to toe. After a moment, she smiled. "All right, I'll do Shadow a favor. I'll ask the Slowpoke one more time. If it wants to follow me, I'll give you something for your trouble. How's that?" Before Aoki could answer, she gave the decision herself. Settled. She crouched down and smiled at Slowpoke like a strange older sister waving a lollipop. "Little guy, I'll give you another chance. How about following me? Your talent isn't what it looks like. Your weak owner can't bring out your potential. I can make you a lot stronger. Want to try?" Her coaxing made Aoki's chest tighten. Slowpoke's potential? But Slowpoke showed no interest. It shook its head, and a blue light flared in its eyes. Green light appeared in Natsume's eyes as well. The two psychics began to communicate telepathically. Aoki couldn't hear them. After a short exchange, Natsume pouted, stood up, and shot Aoki a jealous look, as if her favorite toy had been taken from her. Aoki kept his gaze lowered, not daring to react. From the expression on her face, he could tell Slowpoke had refused. "You're lucky," she said reluctantly. "This Slowpoke actually has enormous potential. I can see why Shadow values it." Her girlish act faded as quickly as it had come. "Boring. I'll go back and find some other dolls to play with." Shh. With that, she turned to leave. Aoki let out a quiet breath of relief. Shadow's name had some weight. It seemed Natsume and Shadow had a relationship that made her back off. Otherwise, given her unpredictability, she wouldn't have given up so easily. Just as he relaxed, she spun back around, a mischievous smile curling her lips. "Humph, not so fast." She gathered a dense ball of green psychic energy in her palm. Before Aoki or Slowpoke had time to react, she struck Aoki's chest with an open hand. A burning sensation shot through him, as if scorching energy had driven into his body. The blow wasn't overwhelming, but it landed hard enough to send him flying backward. He hit the ground with a thud. Slowpoke and Murkrow tried to move, but found they couldn't. Though Murkrow was a dark type and normally resistant to psychic attacks, Natsume's powers had methods to overcome such defenses. Even Murkrow was paralyzed. Ghastly, weakened beforehand, was even less able to resist. Natsume clapped once and nodded with satisfaction. The psychic burst she'd used wasn't meant to be lethal, only to immobilize him for half a day. It was enough to vent her irritation. Then something unexpected happened. A faint blue energy fluctuation stirred across Aoki's body as he lay on the ground. Natsume's expression changed. She knew that ripple all too well. It was a sign of psychic awakening. She flew to his side, incredulous, rubbing her eyes to make sure she wasn't mistaken. He, awakened? As a prodigious psychic herself, Natsume recognized the phenomenon instantly. She closed her eyes and expanded her perception. A moment later, she opened them again, astonished. "He's incredibly lucky," she murmured. "His spiritual power is 5 times that of an ordinary person, just enough to meet the threshold for awakening. And he awakened from the hit of my palm." She stared at him, speechless. She had only meant to punish him mildly, yet that minor blow had triggered his awakening. Aoki's raw talent wasn't exceptional, and his long-term potential might be limited, but psychic ability was now part of him. With effort, he could develop enough strength as a human to contend with Pokémon. Psychic power was one of the 3 major special abilities known in the Pokémon world, and it was rare. Statistically, only one person in hundreds of thousands might awaken. The basic requirement was having spiritual power 5 times that of a common person. Aomuki's 3 lives of experience may have given him an unusual inner reserve, and Natsume's external psychic shock had sparked the change. Because psychics are scarce, there was an unwritten code among them. When possible, they should help one another establish themselves. Before the alliance formed, there had even been a psychic nation where most people were psychics, regardless of aptitude. Their overwhelming power bred arrogance and pride, which eventually led to global war and the nation's disappearance. Later generations learned from that history and kept a lower profile, with elders urging their descendants to aid fellow psychics when they could. Natsume wasn't all spite. Despite her odd manner, she took the duties of a psychic seriously. Though Aomuki's potential was only borderline, she left him a simple training manual. She still sounded a bit annoyed as she tossed it down. Humph. With that, she teleported away, probably to add a few more toys to her collection. We're up for a 6-frequency recommendation this afternoon. Please collect and recommend. Thank you all for your support. If you have recommendation tickets, please use them on this book. Thank you, everyone. Special thanks to Suifeng Luye for the 600 reward, to Tusin Haidao Zid for the 100 reward, to Penglai Yu Businiao for the 100 reward, to Xiaolong Fei for the 100 reward, to Yisan Shi for the 100 reward, and to Sihai Qingqian for the 100 reward. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 99, The Weakest Psychic Ability. Please collect, please recommend. He didn't know how long he'd been lying on the ground. When Aomori finally came to, a splitting headache hit him like a drum roll. Gritting his teeth, he pushed himself up with Slowpoke and Honchcrow's help. He pressed his temples. The pressure eased the worst of the pain. His tightly furrowed brow loosened enough for him to open his eyes. Slowpoke and Honchcrow looked worried. Slowpoke, Honchcrow, are you two okay? Where's Ghastly? His voice came out dry and hoarse. Ghastly's voice sounded weak as the gas type appeared from behind him. The usual dense purple mist that made up Ghastly had thinned considerably, drifting listlessly. Compared with the others, Ghastly had been hit the hardest. Sabrina hadn't targeted him directly, but the aftershocks of her psychic strike nearly scattered his form. Seeing that Ghastly was alive, if battered, Aomori let out a relieved breath. The relief, however, only made his headache return more insistently. Slowpoke noticed the pain on Aomori's face. After a short hesitation, it reached out a foreleg, placed it gently on Aomori's temple, and sent a soft stream of blue psychic ripples into him. A cool, pleasant sensation spread from the contact point, and the stabbing pain in Aomori's head eased substantially. The relief was so acute it almost made him groan aloud. He managed to restrain himself and stared at Slowpoke in surprise. When had Slowpoke's psychic power gained a healing application? The throbbing diminished to a dull, irregular ache that no longer impeded his movements. He stood up slowly, shook his head, and muttered, "Sabrina, she really is." He had meant to curse, but thinking of how suddenly Sabrina had appeared and how powerful she was, the words that came out were impotent, temperamental. Slowpoke hesitated, as if choosing its words. A soft voice echoed in Aomori's mind, a telepathic impression rather than sound. "Master, you should have, awakened?" Awakened? The word struck him like lightning. Honchcrow landed on his shoulder, dropping a thin booklet into Aomori's hands. The cover read, Psychic Training Manual, Part 1. Awakened psychic ability? Aomori blinked, stunned. Slowpoke, Honchcrow, and even Ghastly nodded in their own ways. While they had been unable to act during his blackout, they had all sensed a faint psychic presence emerging from him. It was weak, but it was real, an awakening. "Why don't I feel anything?" Aomori asked aloud. The 3 Pokémon looked puzzled as well. Honchcrow and Ghastly had no psychic training to draw on, and Slowpoke's psychic talent was innate. This sort of acquired awakening was unfamiliar to it, too. He flipped open the manual. The booklet was short but efficient. The first page explained the most basic application of psychic power. Focus your mind, attach psychic energy to an object, and move or deform it. For a newly awakened psychic, the manual advised, the best test was to try moving something small. Aomori set the manual aside and fixed his gaze on a fist-sized stone. He concentrated until his eyes watered and the muscles in his jaw ached, but the rock did not budge. Frustrated, he tried a thumb-sized pebble instead. This time, A faint blue ripple wavered across it. With the force of his will, the pebble lifted slowly into the air. A flicker of astonishment crossed his face. He let the focus drop, and the pebble clattered back to the ground with a soft plop. "So I really did awaken," he said, half to himself. Excitement rose in him, tempered by disappointment. The ability was so weak it seemed almost useless. It wasn't anywhere near Sabrina's level, or even Slowpoke's. He felt both fortunate and frustrated. Fortunate to have awakened at all, frustrated by how pitifully little power he currently possessed. He read further. Psychics were 1 in 10,000, the manual said, rare and useful in both everyday life and battle, provided their power could grow. Aomori didn't know then that, before today, he would have had no chance to awaken at all. 3 lifetimes' worth of experience, time and memory, had strengthened his mind beyond the ordinary, giving him the necessary condition for awakening. But that alone wasn't enough. It took a powerful external force to trigger the change. Inadvertently, Sabrina's concentrated palm to his head, intended to punish and immobilize him, had supplied that spark. Her attack had both punished and freed him. By forcing open the latent restraints of his body, it allowed the psychic seed to sprout. The thought made him rueful. Awakening felt like a gift. His helplessness under Sabrina's power felt like a rebuke. He slid the manual into his belt. There was no time to study here. The disturbance had already lasted long enough. It was better to move on. He recalled Slowpoke into its Pokeball and let the weakened Ghastly hide in his shadow. Honchkrow gave him a hesitant, searching look as Aomori shrugged on his black robe and settled the bird on his shoulder. With his small, new psychic flicker still humming faintly in his mind, he left the area. It's time for the 6th recommendation. Please collect. Please recommend. Chapter 100, Purchasing Materials. Please collect and recommend. 33. Back in the black market, Aomuki first stopped by the Pokemon sales area. He found a stall and sold the 4 Pokemon he had forgotten to sell earlier, pocketing 50,000 Alliance coins. It wasn't a huge sum, but it was better than nothing. Next, he went to the largest general store in the market and bought a storage ring with a 5 cubic meter capacity, which he slid onto his right index finger. The ring looked ordinary, and it cost him the 50,000 Alliance coins he had just earned. The belt Team Rocket had given him on Trial Island only held 1 cubic meter, and the Team Rocket logo was far too conspicuous. He certainly didn't want to be wandering around as an Alliance member wearing that. Replacing it was necessary. Space storage technology in the world of Pokemon was surprisingly advanced. A 5 cubic meter ring for 50,000 Alliance coins made sense when you remembered that Pokeballs themselves were spatial tools. The most common Pokeball cost just 200 Alliance coins. He transferred everything from the Team Rocket belt into the new ring. Unless something unexpected happened, the ring would be his main storage from then on. He then hurried to the Pokemon food shop, not to buy ability blocks, but because making high-grade energy blocks required more than ordinary berries and herbs. Aomuki planned to craft energy blocks tailored to each Pokemon's needs, and that meant rare ingredients. He barely glanced at the display of energy blocks. He'd seen enough to know how profitable they were. The common universal energy block cost 500 Alliance coins apiece. A Pokemon with a normal appetite could eat dozens of those in a meal. Higher-level Pokemon consumed even more. One meal could easily cost tens or hundreds of thousands of Alliance coins. The margins here were enormous, and every time he saw the prices, he felt a little envious. Still, with his current level of power, producing high-grade energy blocks publicly would bring danger, not fortune. If people discovered he could make them, it wouldn't be wealth he gained, but trouble. The shop was run by several breeders permanently stationed in Saffron City, including a senior breeder, so even in the black market, no one dared cause trouble there. Under the clerk's slightly condescending stare, Aomuki spent a full 1 million Alliance coins on odd, expensive materials instead of the popular energy blocks. To the clerk, it probably looked strange, but anyone who truly understood breeding would recognize what those purchases meant. He bought powder made from the horn of a deceased quasi-elite Houndoom, the densest dark-type energy, and a portion of feather powder from a deceased quasi-elite Pidgeot. Those two were crucial for making blocks for Honchkrow. For Slowpoke's psychic and water affinities, he picked up a small amount of inferior Philosopher's Stone powder and a shed scale from a quasi-elite Gyarados. Ghastly needed a special kind of energy. Aomuki bought a tiny piece of inferior black sludge material for poison-type energy and a strip of ghost cloth commonly associated with ghost-type Pokemon. For the unhatched Skorupi, he prepared in advance a shed shell from a Heracross and the same poison-type material he'd bought for Ghastly. Those strange, costly ingredients added up to 1 million Alliance coins. The other special berries and medicinal herbs he purchased cost another 100,000. When he walked out of the shop, he had a little over 700,000 Alliance coins left. The 3.6 million he'd earned earlier was almost all gone in less than a day. This was how expensive it was to raise Pokemon, even when you could make your own energy blocks. For ordinary people, raising Pokemon was a huge investment, and these purchases only covered a portion of their needs. Once the energy blocks were used up, he'd need more, and as the Pokemon leveled up, the required materials would have to be even better. With a staff member's help, he transferred all the remaining coins to the bank card linked to his Alliance ID and tossed the unregistered black bank card. He didn't know if Team Rocket had done anything to that old card, so it was safer to discard it. Carrying the weight of a long, tiring day, Aomuki left the black market without drawing attention. He no longer let Slowpoke use teleport casually in Saffron City. Sabrina had left him with enough psychological trauma. Even if awakening psychic powers had been the result, no one wanted to face an opponent they couldn't resist. In a quiet corner, he changed back into his Alliance member clothes, hailed a taxi, and went straight to the city center Pokemon Center. By the time he arrived, it was already dark. He'd had plenty of time earlier in the day, but Sabrina's sudden appearance had knocked him out for 3 or 4 hours. After showing his Alliance ID, he got a room and paid for staff to bring dinner to him and his Pokemon. After a filling meal, he collapsed onto the bed. The day had been chaotic and emotionally draining, and the headache from awakening his psychic ability hadn't fully faded. Fatigue spread through him, and he quickly fell into a deep sleep. A Pokemon Center's rooms weren't luxurious, but they were safe. Unless there was a war or a terrorist attack, a Pokemon Center represented security, the Alliance's symbol of safety. Afternoon recommendations have changed. Please collect and recommend.